Usually the water is flowing over the dam, but not today. So we're rolling on the Kings Mountain National Recreation Trail this morning. February 3rd, about 9 a.m. It's a balmy 40, 42 out here just to get us rolling. Pretty good day. It's gonna be a great day. Sunny, blue skies, light wind, perfect. Yep, about 16 miles to knock it out. Just trying to get my trail legs back under me for some upcoming spring hikes. So, anywho, and also learn how to make these stupid videos. That way in 20 years I'll remember this, right? Because your memory goes. Be the first thing to leave you. We'll see how this day goes. Let's see. Terrain for today's hike. It's pretty flat. It's about 1,500 feet of elevation gain for the upstate of South Carolina. Equals pretty flat. Hardwood forest. Most of the leaves are all gone. Just some few shrubs, hollies, rhododendrons, a few things like that. Still with some leaf out on it. Sorry, I had to figure out my bearings. They want you to go to the left side of the trail. It's a loop. For whatever reason, I've always gone left. Thought today would be the day to go right. So we'll see. We either end up lost or we end up back at those trailheads there, but I think we'll be just fine. Good bit of water out here. I've been here in years past and the water be dried up. So we typically break this 16-mile hike up with scouts into 2 8-mile days. But I've always wanted to just come and do the entire loop in one day. Just to say I did it. But for the it's great for scouting group, young scouts, young kids. Don't really need to carry much out here. Usually good water all the way around. Trail's real good. It's really marked well. Coming up here will be a dump off to the National Military Park. It's about a mile off the trail, off of this loop trail to get to the center. I've never done that either. But I'm sure it's pretty much like the rest of these trails is. Sorry, I had to figure out my bearings. They want you to go to the left side of the trail. It's a loop. For whatever reason, I've always gone left. Thought today would be the day to go right. So we'll see. We either end up lost or we end up back at those trailheads there, but I think we'll be just fine. Good bit of water out here. I've been here in years past and the water be dried up. So we typically break this 16-mile hike up with scouts into 2 8-mile days. But I've always wanted to just come and do the entire loop in one day. Just to say I did it. But for the it's great for scouting group, young scouts, young kids. Don't really need to carry much out here. Usually good water all the way around. Trail's real good. It's really marked well. Coming up here will be a dump off to the National Military Park. It's about a mile off the trail, off of this loop trail to get to the center. I've never done that either. But I'm sure it's pretty much like the rest of these trails is. We're coming up on the group camping area at Kings Mountain State Park. All primitive. They've got water here out of that building. Good level site. A lot of open areas, no widowmakers. Pretty good. It goes way back beyond that building, back there. So, good spot. Typically they'll have that gate open where you can drive in. Here's all your phone numbers, rules, regulations. The phone numbers make no difference because if you have Verizon, you have no service here anyway. Back to it. Next stop will be the National Military Park side trail. Won't be doing that today, but probably recommended to do. But it's an extra mile in, mile out. We're at the Ridgeline Trail intersection. It's a red trail, it heads that way. It goes up to Crowder's Mountain State Park. It appears to be about 3 miles. to get up there. Not real sure about that trail either. Don't fall. So I've made my first pit stop this morning. Had to take some change of hats. Got the blood flow pumping. Feels like it's about 48 out here now. Could be hotter. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's just me. You cannot change your cameras from forward facing to rear facing on a video. I just learned that this morning. In case you're looking for knowledge, you're not going to get much, but you will get that. Funny story. I said I'd never been to the visitor center. However, I didn't never remember turning at that sign. Of course, I never came from this direction either. So I visited the visitor center. It is about 2.7 miles from the parking lot down to the visitor center at the National Park, Battlefield Park, and they got bathrooms, little visitor center, possible primitive camping in there, learning center, so on and so forth, depicting the history of the Revolutionary War battle at Kings Mountain. So, great day hike idea. A little over 5 miles, 5.5 miles out and back. Pretty fair terrain, nothing real bad, moderate I'd call it. Few humps and bumps, a few little mud holes. Nothing to write home about really. No real views. Some nice little creek features, some bridges. Pretty much walking in a valley. You do sum it up on a ridge line and then walk in from there to the military park. I spoke earlier that this trail wrapped around the state park boundary. That was not true. It actually goes into the military park, and there's a campsite about 3 miles up from here that you saw on that sign back there, which is where we typically stay at if we're doing a halfway camp, so to speak. So any rate, so made a believer out of me. My favorite thing. "12 more miles back to the car." Hey, so we're creeping in on about the 5-mile mark of this trail. It's about 11 o'clock. Shed another layer. Get down to my groundhog shirt. Should have wore it yesterday. Forgot all about it until I went digging last night for it. Anywho, been some ups and downs. We're pretty much in a valley, I think, now for the next couple miles. Nothing real bad. Just crisscrossing a little creek. Plenty of water though. So that's this time of year. I'm not sure. Summertime I can see where it dries out. But we've had a lot of rain in the last 2 months. So probably while these creeks are slam full right now. So at any rate, check back in at the 6-mile campsite coming up in a mile or so. Awesome little stealth site. Probably almost 6 miles in from State Park. You are on national battlefield ground here though, and there is a sign that says no camping. However, this is the premium spot. If you ask me, flat, plenty of trees. If you had to dodge in somewhere, this is where it would be. This is Garner Creek campsite. Nowhere near a creek. No creek in sight. It is about quarter to a third of a mile past that other campsite. That was perfect. That would have been my place, but well, whatever. Crazy. Goes from nothing on the floor of the forest to a green carpet as far as you can see. rolled in the campsite number 2, so it's labeled. This will be the state park campsite. The trail comes right to the left of that fire ring there. Creek is right down here, below that greenery. Pretty good flow. I'll grab some water out of there before we head out. Good trees, you know, you can get 6-8 hammocks in here. A lot of new growth over here. You're not hanging anything over there, so sometimes you got to get creative and get up on the hillside over here. I've camped here twice at least with scouts, so it can be done. It's kind of a tight little area if you've got more than 6 or 8 people, but spread out, especially if you're in hammocks. Tents, you can get there's probably 2 or 3 good flat spots here for tents. There's one you could get pretty close to the fire ring for 2, and then there's one back in that area right there. And the trail comes in right there and wraps right past here. So anyway, good little spot, good little hidey hole. About 8.25, something like that, miles out to here. I'm gonna cook up some lunch, some chicken noodles, and probably a Spam block, one of my favorites. This is one of the horse camps along the trail, one of the horse trails. That trail comes down from there, and they can stop off here. You got tiles for the horses, on those ropes there, some picnic tables, step to get back on if you needed it. Crazy, though, no water around here. No water, but I guess they don't need it. And we've got about 6 miles, 5.5, 6 miles left to go. Haha. We're at primitive campsite number 1. This is the closest primitive site to Kings Mountain State Park. About 2.5 miles, 2 3/4 miles away from the actual park, or the parking area. Something like that. Great water. Great water. Decent fire ring. Eagle Scout project. I'm assuming this is a cook table. Done back in 2020. A couple benches. That's it. So good little site. Probably enough room for, I don't know, 3 or 4 tents on the flat. Plenty of room for hammocks, probably 6, 8, 10 hammocks in this area. So would not be a problem to stay here. Rolling back into Kings Mountain Trailhead. Definitely go right at this sign, not left as it says. Whole lot easier to go right than left, promise you. Especially if you're breaking it up into 2 days. Way easier. Here we are, rolling back in. There's the dam of the lake we saw this morning. So it's kind of a recap of the day. Coming up as soon as I get to the parking lot. I got another 200 yards to go. Alrighty, so end of day recap. It sucked. I am terribly out of shape for walking on a trail. Probably bit off a little more than I can chew. 16 miles. Official time was 8 hours, 14 minutes. That included all my breaks and lunch and everything. 50-minute lunch. So probably average somewhere around 2, maybe 2.5 miles an hour